Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and maybe this channel might be called like Obsidian Star, sponsored by RPG with DBJ or featuring or something like that. But whatever the case may be, we're going to talk about science fiction today. And in the we're going to talk about population explosion, specifically in this setting of Obsidian Star, a tabletop role playing game we're designing here live, and the concept of trillions of people, a trillion or more living in our own solar system, and how science fiction deals with large population centers in our own pop culture, and the concept of not being able to conceive of maybe trillions of people. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Thank you there, dead man. So the word souls I took from naval and aeronautics in the sense of when passengers are transported from one place to another, many times they're referred to as souls. So if you're an airline pilot, you may have 237 souls on board. And the in science fiction, we have AIs and robots and digital downloads of people's neural pathways and things like that. Whether you consider them to be a soul, in the I'm counting each person one by one. Do they have to have a physical body? That we're going to leave that up for debate, whether you believe that they are considered to be a soul or to even have a soul, or whether their physical and or digital structure counts with the population. I have my own opinion about that, but you guys decide on your own. But side note, everyone who's able to participate in the show live is a co-host of the show, and so I always default to everyone who's able to be here. A, your time's very valuable, and B, we get a lot of brilliant individuals here. So we're going to talk about the habitats where many of these people live. The vast majority of them live on moons, and many of those moons and celestial bodies are then used, hollowed out, used as building materials for spindles and toruses and other habitats that exist in zero gravity. But we're also going to talk about the air quotes land-based or geological habitats where all these people live, and how the hell do you have trillions of people? And to be honest with you, mathematically speaking, a trillion people living in the solar system is actually quite low. So okay, there was the initial comment by Tom Sanderson says trillions of souls spread across the solar system. How many without souls like AI, or do AI have souls too? And that is where each of us will have to make our own distinctions. I mean, would there be a distinction between the AI systems in everyone's cell phone? Like, do we double the population for everyone that's got one in their pocket or something? I don't know. Maybe. Yen King says trillions of souls, quadrillions of bodies. See, that's the other thing too. Like, if you've got clone bodies stacked in chambers being grown somewhere, and do you count the bodies or do you count the minds? or um do you stack the minds with bodies even if they're not connected to each other so you get a lower population? I don't know. Yeah. And like Shai says, soul's kind of an outdated concept in the 25th century, isn't it? Maybe. I think my own personal feeling is that I think we would have a sizable part of the population that still holds on to concepts of ascension, whether that is specifically religious or it's kind of transformative. I think human beings, we think very far above and beyond ourselves, and with added knowledge of how the universe works, we may either ascend our thoughts beyond that level or incorporate those things to us. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. These streams have been watching Star Trek clips again. That's awesome. So Yeah, soul. Are we talking about music? Um, there's some tangential information discussion about that. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, just maybe keep the RPG with DBJ changing. It could be a recognition weakening game. Yep, I agree with you. Yeah, James Proud. Oh yeah. I like my coffee like my soul, black and bitter. Yeah, or black and Irish. Yeah, there's that. The Obsidian is a thoroughly no undead setting, right? Wow. Hmm. Um, I'd have to say that's an interesting question because how would you? Okay, I'd have to say there probably is some form of undead, but not the way you think. Probably closer to like the virus, bacteria, rabies version of undead. I guess would be a thing. Maybe. What is it? 28 days later and 28 weeks later is kind of like a rabies virus, and that's as close as maybe that close. Mm. Tia, you and Lovecraft, you guys are best friends. Yeah, because the whole question of souls instantly raises the question of ghosts. Cyber zombies, yeah, zombified people because they're just like so zoned out in their own world. Maybe they're more like lobotomized people, I guess would be a thing. Yeah, TA says, would nanobots be able to reanimate a dead body without bringing it back to life? Being undead, like a techno zombie, cyber zombies. Yeah, cordyceps, the zombie virus. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it would be closer to that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely, they're dead men. Okay, so a trillion souls. So the concept of trillions of people living in a um, science fiction type setting, a far future setting, although has been in a lot of media, whether it's books or comic books or graphic novels and anime and things like that, we tend to see lower populations. Well, for one reason, simply describing that many people can be very difficult because it's hard for our brains to comprehend that many people. We When we think of trillions of people, we kind of think of like Soylent Green. Um, oh, there's a classic dump truck. There's a classic dump truck movie poster with Soylent Green in it, and oh, if we can get a good one. So, spoiler alert: Soylent Green is people. Um, but when we think of like these super high population centers, we often think of I share this out to you guys. So we often think of like tripping and falling over people and having that be the outcome. And for much of history, people have been concerned about the overpopulation of people, and it's hard to see this one. There's a dump truck that says riot control, and they're scooping people up, and you can see down here in the highways, like in the roadways, they're just like scooping people up and stuff like that. It's pretty hilarious. It's very dark and hilarious. And this is an image from the movie where they had a bunch of like stunt people and dummy bodies, and there was literally like like a police force precinct control where they would just scoop people up and dump them into things. Listen, that's not how trillions of people would live. Neither, not by choice or anything. Yes, there would be places that would be compacted with a lot of people, but our solar system is huge, and so when you're talking trillions of people, not only would they be spread across a solar system with a total of, I'll give you a couple of minutes. How many moons do they have recorded in our solar system? And I believe it does not include the asteroid belt. So I believe a moon is literally a celestial body that's orbiting another planetary body. So how many moons do you think there are? All right, let's get back into chat. Shitlord says, do you have anything like 40K style hive worlds? Not okay, not hive worlds as in planets, but there are moons that are like that. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to keep it within reason, but make it a bit outside of our mental conceptions. So, a zero gravity celestial body, a moon orbiting a planet, could be hollowed out and turned into like a hive world. Essentially, what is it? Ecumenopolis? Ecumenopolis? Is that how it's spelled? At let's see, massive. I spelled it wrong. Ecumenopolis, hypothetical citywide planet. E Ecumenopolis. So that's basically like a hive world would be one where like it's been used where every possible surface has been used to create a like a city, and it basically turns into a hive because you start digging underground and things like that. Earth has been turned into that kind of the Earth's crust. So there are people who live underground, like 20, 30, 40 levels underground. There's many of that. And King says Buckhead has a song called "Too Many Humans." Although in this world, you could still have trillions of consciousnesses, the consciousnesses that aren't human. Try. Oh, you guys got well ahead of me. Shai says virus, bacteria, rabies, undead. Andrew would be proud. Yep. His "My Name is Lucifer" setting about rapture zombies that never got made. Ooh, rapture zombies. I like the idea of like bliss zombies. Yeah, rapture zombies. Shai says, unfortunately, I've been taking cordyceps supplements for 6 months and have yet to turn into a mushroom zombie. How do you know? Yeah, yeah. Sorry, going through the chat just like spilled over. Sometimes it stops and then all of a sudden like everything will hit at the same time. Sorry about that. Yeah, speaking of overpopulation, Canned Man is Soylent Green before there was Soylent Green. Ever read the Wanting Seed by Anthony Burgess? No, I have not. I have not read that. I just remember having, Soylent Green was a movie made during a period of time where um, it was very much like Twilight Zone. Outer Limits was a big deal, and a lot of that dealt with societal issues, whether it was overpopulation or nuclear, atomic and nuclear proliferation and things of that nature. And yeah, Soylent Green had like food police that were out there going after people, whether they had I just remember a weird. I mean, I get it, but there was a weird scene where our main character is like going after people, and someone had a fork that had like chocolate cake on it, and things like that. Yeah, I don't know why he didn't understand where they were taking all the people. Um, as a matter of fact, Soylent Green even had like, unfortunately, had like voluntary these like voluntary suicide camps or something. Yeah. New delicious Soylent Green, miracle food of high energy plankton gathered from the oceans of the world. If you say so. Yeah. But anyway, um, yeah, that's the dystopian look of overpopulation. Imagine imagine breaking writer's block by having your mind split into thousands, uh, thousands of clone bodies all working on a story concept collectively. That's may not be far from the truth if we are able to get blank um, chat GPT like systems and then plug them in with the work that you've already done. I could see something like that being coming within like the next 10 years or something. Pretty easy, less than 10 years. TA says celestial body orbiting something other than a star, from what I would guess, though I guess it should look up the actual definition so as to avoid angering an anti-definition league. Yeah. Yeah, I tried to weasel my way around what a moon is, and I believe even now, um, space agencies are trying to redefine the definitions they have because they're finding out that there's like, there's planets that don't orbit stars, but like, are they planetoids, and what size are they, and different gravitational systems and things with the celestial bodies, which may or may not make them moons that orbit something. So yeah. Space wasp creatures building a paper planet that functions like a hive. Picture how terrifying that would be. Ooh, that's actually kind of cool. I hadn't thought about that. Like wasps, yeah, space wasps, like putting together those. If you've ever seen a wasp's nest, it looks very different than like a bee's nest. But yeah. What about world rings? Earth has a ring around it. Has an orbital ring in this obsidian star setting. That's how all the people got off the planet quickly and spread across the system. Deadman says a hive world is a world with over 10 billion people. Most hive worlds don't have 100% of the surface covered in cities. Oh, I'm mixing the two. Yeah. I'm mixing the two. I'm thinking of yes. I'm thinking of what's the Star Wars. I literally have the shirt on. What's the Star Wars? the 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 Star Wars world that is or was, is it still around? No, it got destroyed in one of the movies. Anyway, um, Coruscant. Sheesh, my brain didn't work. Coruscant is the city-wide world. A hive world is a hive world just one with like, if it's 10 plus billion people, we're almost a hive world now. That's, I mean, if it's based on population. But then I guess that would depend on how big the planet is and the surface area too. Like you could, despite Mars being smaller than Earth, you could easily fit 10 billion, 15, 20 billion people on Mars and have plenty of space left over because we're only living on 30% of the land surface, really. And even part of that, we're not living all over all of it. So yeah, TA says, like the ones that Isaac Arthur talked about, with something spinning around inside it to create centrifugal force to allow it to stay put without being far enough to just be floating. Yes, an orbital ring would be um a dynamo. So you take a copper wire. This is the concept. You take a copper wire, you stretch it around Earth's atmosphere, and then you spin it faster than the Earth is spinning. So you make a dynamo, you make an electrical dynamo, and then you build a ring around you build a vacuum tube around the copper wire, and then you build an orbital ring that doesn't move. So becomes geosynchronous. So inside of the orbital ring is another ring spinning faster to create centrifugal force. Yes, that's basically it. It's spinning fast enough to have escape Earth's gravitational pull, which makes it seem like it's leaving the Earth, and that expands it out so that it doesn't, and then it's a complete ring, so it's not falling inward, it's actually escaping outwards. And then you build a physical structure around it. So that's kind of how Isaac Arthur described it. Yeah, all that talk about Soylent Green makes me hungry. Yeah, pretty horrible. Well, speaking of Soylent Green, I'm a vegan now. I don't know what Soylent Green. I'm pretty sure it does not count as something vegan. It's pretty processed and it's made out of people. I thought Southern Green was a nasty, bland tasting product, though. Not at all like the long pork based bacon is described. I guess you could add some flavor to it. I guess if you were rich, you could add flavor squirts to it. The Ant King says best thing about wasps is they are real life xenomorphs. So if you ever want a horror themed campaign book, there you go. You know what? I'm gonna steal that. Oh, thanks, dear Ant King. Yeah, upvotes. Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Yeah, Thomas Anderson says, "Yep. The main reason, though, is so it can be low enough to make getting to and from it either with tethers or pylons that you would need impossibly tall ones if the spinning item inside to allow the lower altitude offers." Oh, you mean so the idea of an orbital ring is that you could make chandelier cities. You actually extend a tether down into Earth's atmosphere, and then you take an elevator up the ring, and then if you have enough material and engineering, you could keep making towers that go to another ring and another ring and another ring, and then you would build starships on the furthest ring away, and then all you would have to do is just uncouple them, and then it would be launched at orbital speeds once they are ejected from the ring. Okay, so thanks here, TA. So currently, and this is just from a Google search because I don't know whether they found more or less or when this was promoted, but according to NASA JPL Solar System Dynamics team, the current tally of moons orbiting planets in our solar system is 290. There's one moon for Earth, 2 for Mars, 95 at Jupiter, 146 at Saturn, 27 at Uranus, 14 at Neptune, and 5 for the dwarf planet Pluto. And remember, I think one of the things we think about on Earth is that, with 8, 9, 10 billion people living on Earth, we think it would be crowded, but we don't live on all of the surface area. And with technology, once we're able to effectively house people very high into the air, making like these basic arcologies and house people high into the air and then deeper into the ground in subterranean locations, as well as people living in the oceans and deep oceans and on the surface of the ocean. At a certain point, we're not using all of our space effectively. We're basically spreading ourselves across the surface rather than living in giant cities. Now, of course, we do have major cities like New York City and Shanghai and Tokyo and places like that, Los Angeles and such, and they do have high-rise buildings and people do live in them, but we sleep in those buildings. We don't necessarily house ourselves in buildings big enough where we never touch the ground. And if we get enough technology and engineering to allow ourselves to live in places where you can live, eat, have education, and basically live hundreds of stories, whether you live a mile or more or kilometers, measured that high into the air, and we're able to move and have lives and live in housing and education and eat and travel and never put our feet on the ground. That's where a lot of our trillions of people will live. The other part about I wanted to bring up and incorporate in Obsidian Star that's not often done in popular culture, science fiction when it comes to populations. Part of that is just general old money, right? It's very difficult to hire extras and coordinate those extras and to have a television show or a movie where we're seeing hundreds of thousands of people all the time in the background. So a lot of times to describe our sci-fi settings, there's always some post-apocalyptic major death event so we can keep the population low. And by keeping the population low, then we don't have to worry about describing, technology writ large for a lot of people. But I think it would be far more interesting in a tabletop role-playing game to understand and let the players know that your major population centers have hundreds of thousands, millions, billions, trillions of people living in them, and that what we think of like government and gangs and stuff, you can start keep adding zeros to it, and there comes a point where um, the number of people that are in dangerous and lethal, um, horrific situations becomes, we get a little numb. Like for example, let's see, how many people died in World War II? And so a statistic, I just typed this in, like how many people died in World War II, and this is just the first thing that popped up in a search. And I'm sure there are many people who dispute this, but World War II was the largest and most violent military conflict in human history. Official casualty sources estimate battle deaths at nearly 15 million military personnel and civilian deaths at over 38 million. Now, when we think about that, right? Like there's a point, I think, in our minds where when the number gets so high, it goes from a feeling to a statistic that we can't even conceive of sending 15 million military personnel into war. Like it's difficult for us to even think there's that many people available to do that, that are combat ready, and to think that many of them were volunteers, and or individuals that were probably between the ages of like 16, 17 to like 28, maybe, probably in that age range for 15 million military personnel. It's pretty horrific. And so I wanted to bring across this is a dark utopia, or yeah, dark utopia. So there may be gangs that aren't, that, instead of numbering in the dozens or hundreds, there may be gangs, like little street gangs, that number in the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. There may be situations where people are, like, for example, an orbital impact could eliminate millions of people, and the total population of our solar system doesn't even notice it. And there's a darkness in the apathy when it comes to large numbers of people dying at a rate that we can't conceive of, and it just becomes a statistic. And even today, many of us feel, those who are very empathic, can feel some trauma from that, because they can't conceive of all the deaths of all the people around our world, let alone in this giant solar system where you've got, a trillion souls or more. So the ability for the game master to play with large population centers and the destruction of those centers and the harm that comes about them, yeah, it's a little bit hard to conceive, and I want it to be that way, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, if someone takes control of, say, one of those uh, laser uh, laser assist systems that are floating around our star, uh, controlled from Mercury, that are used to push starships in their solar sails, those things are weapons of mass destruction. They can be focused onto a major city, on an asteroid or a moon or something, and if that laser is ever used and commandeered, it could blow away millions of people, tens of millions even, and the solar system will still move on. TA says, I would think that space colonies would have issues too from time to time, affecting humans the way those fungus have wiped out all banana populations or other crops and things. Yeah, if you don't have clean systems, it would definitely do something like that, wiping people out just from bacteria growing. Yeah. Yeah, TA says those numbers are basically unfathomable by the human mind. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, um, and I'm going to I'm going to misrepresent this, but I think you're going to understand what I mean by me saying this. when um, with this 15 million military personnel, 38 million people dead, um, there was a uh, there were comments made by individuals in the military during World War II, and these military strategists were basically talking about the storming of Normandy, where imagine the beginning, the opening 15, 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. And the concept was, if we send enough people, enough military, we can storm the beaches and get there. And of course, you have to record, like, in every mission, well, what percentage of losses will we have? And they were talking in such large numbers that it became almost like they were unfeeling in their number distribution, right? It's like, well, we'll lose, 38%, which is only about, 287,000. Like, you're talking in such large numbers that they couldn't even conceive of having any feelings about sending that many innocent young soldiers into a meat grinder. But that was really what happened, and it's kind of a shame. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Just not having feeling is a dystopia, right, unto itself. So there's certainly an emperor to feed. Yeah, an emperor. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Hong Kong today is an example of a tiny hive city. Multiply it by 100, and you have an average Warhammer 40K hive city. Yes. What's the location? I'm not going to look it up. There's a city in. Oh, it's like the um, most populated city tower. I can't remember. Mm-mm-mm. 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 I can't remember it. Anyway, there's one out there. There's like an image of it. There's like a 3D. There have been 3D analysis of this place where it's the most populated. Oh, now you're gonna make me do it. Most, not city. Is it building? Um, is it in China? No, no, no. What's the? Oh, there's an image of it too. There, is that it? What's the name of it? Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm. It's like a big giant city block. Kulan, there it is. There it is. Okay, okay. Sorry, I know you guys are. Kowloon, Kowloon walled city. Let me get some images up here. There it is. Mm-mm-mm. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Okay, so um, space habitats, large populations, many moons. So the you guys know that I am I'm a fan of our own solar system. And in science fiction, we usually have Earth, maybe the moon and Mars, and then we jump from there to go into like Alpha Centauri or Procyon or Proxima something or whatever. And I think our own solar system is pretty amazing. And having a solar system filled with, like, 290 moons. We're not talking about the planets. We just mean the moons around those planets, gives us a lot of space to have adventures. And to have those adventures, um having those adventures, I think is the bread and butter of telling our stories, right? And let me share this out instead. And having those stories on these different moons. Remember, our Earth, we're only living on the very thin crust of our Earth. And even on that thin crust, our thin crust is filled with 70% ocean, which in and of itself, compared to the density of the planet, our oceans are very thin as well. It's just a thin scum, basically. And so, um, having adventurous spaces on other moons and the many moons that exist in our solar system is pretty, I think, is pretty amazing. So yeah, having, I mean, like for example, right here with this image that I'm sharing out, we've got. If, I know you guys can't read it because I can barely read it, but uh, we've got the moon, which is called Luna, Miranda, Oberon, Ariel. Those are the ones from Shakespeare. And then we've got like Mars with Phobos and Deimos. We've got Titan and Rhea, Dion, Charon or Charon, Pluto, which are like, I think Charon is orbits around Pluto, which has been demoted from being a planet. It's in and of itself. Of course, we've got Triton and Tethys, Minos, Hyperion, and so many other places. Despite the big ones that we know in science fiction, like Ganymede and Callisto, Io and Europa. There's so many others, and it's not just a matter of them being a moon, but what kind of moon is it? Does it have an atmosphere? Does it have an internal ocean? Um, how far does it orbit away from the planet that it orbits? For example, Jupiter shoots off lots of radiation and electromagnetic energy, and it's at the point where I believe it's Io or one of these planets moons that is ejecting material from it and has like an electromagnetic tether to Jupiter that is so powerful they think you can actually see the light circling the moon and trailing and having like um, a what's it called, aurora borealis style trail to it as it orbits the planet, because you can actually visually see all the energy that's into it. I think that's really cool. um yeah, Prometheus, Pandora, Manos, Calypso, Pan. Saturn's got a bunch of, Saturn's got 146 moons. Jupiter's got 95. And we think of Saturn as having rings. We don't really think of Saturn as having moons. And so these are many places. And in describing your science fiction setting, we can describe how many people live on it. Like, is it a research station with only maybe a couple 100,000, or is this a major trade center with 2 billion people living on this moon? Again, Earth, we're only living in a very small percentage of the landmass. You take a moon that doesn't have any oceans on it, like Mars, that doesn't have really any oceans on it, and even if we could make oceans, they'd be relatively small compared to Earth. So you got a lot of landmass to live on, a lot of landmass to go hide, and have your illegal and deviant things that happen in tabletop role playing games. We also can build very high and very low, so giant major towers and cities would exist in those places, and many of those big giant city sized towers and dome cities and things like that probably have a pretty good reason for being that way. For example, um, a low gravity moon might have towers that go many kilometers into the air and then have starships attached to them, and or tethers attached to them, or cable lines where cable lines travel dozens, maybe even hundreds or even thousands of miles or kilometers, going to maybe other tower cities. And that's how people get along. Maybe they don't drive on the ground. Maybe they use cable cars or whatever, or giant highways or tubes or things like that. So yeah, TA says John Michael Gaudier has a video on using moons for data storage facilities. Isaac Arthur the same way. I believe it was using Titan as a data storage facility, because you could take an extremely cold moon and put data storage places, and you have yourself like using data storage facilities here and putting them under the oceans, or having to use a lot of like air conditioning. You take a ice cold moon, they're perfect for data location, especially like AI systems and things, or AGIs would probably live there. My concept is that either Uranus or Neptune would they'd have a chandelier data system into the atmosphere that's so cold so that they could dissipate the heat and things from the data processing. So Yeah. Yeah, TA says, or rather, using moons as a location to build the data storage facilities and server farms due to how little things change there over time, etc. There's also that as well, right? Like you get a very cold place, you get a place that's purpose built as data farms, and then you have a population of maybe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands that just monitor them, and you're done. Plus maybe 5 times as many autonomous robots and machines and things, and you're done. Shitlord says there must be lots of mining operations with evil robots in the mines that you have to make pew pew on. Yes. I love that. Yeah, of course there's evil robots going wild. Of course. Listen, this is science fiction. You got to have a robot or a couple thousand go wild and like I don't know. We haven't heard from the population in a while. Someone needs to go check it out. It's the yes. There is that. Shai says that many moons. Damn, my elementary school teachers failed me there. Me too. Me too. Yeah, there's a lot of moons. A lot. Like to the point where let me get rid of this and go back to this file. Sorry, let's go right here. Did I get it right? Nope, I didn't get it right because it turned off. How many moons are in our solar system file? There we go. And put this up here. So here we go. So how many moons? 290, and that's from NASA. And once you start getting into how many moons there are and things like that, like here's a little kid. Our moon isn't the only moon, you know. It's so silly. Mars has 2 moons. Their names are Phobos and Deimos. Don't you wish our moon had a cool name like that? Well, it does. It's called Luna. And then we have here, like, how many moons? This is Jupiter. They have lots of moons. Jupiter, for instance, has 95 known moons. The most well-known of Jupiter's moons are Europa and Callisto. There's also Ganymede and Io. Yep. And then we have Saturn. 146 moons. And I never even like even in my mind, my mind canon, right? It's like I think of Saturn and it's like, oh, it's got an icy ring around it that's cool to, like, I don't know, pilot through, the classic science fiction piloting through an asteroid field or something. But yeah, it's got moons like Mimas, Enceladus, Tethys. One of the moons, known as Titan, even has its own atmosphere, which is very unusual for a moon. There have been movies. I think there's like a Netflix movie made about genetically altering ourselves to move to Titan. Yep, and then Uranus and Neptune, 27 moons around Uranus and 14 around Neptune. One of Neptune's moons, Triton, is as big as dwarf planet Pluto, which is another thing that we think other planets have moons that are relatively similar in size to Earth and our moon Luna, but that's not the case. In our own solar system, we have moons that are like, as big as Mercury and things like that. So it's pretty crazy. So we have other places that people can live. Asteroid belt families. So the asteroid belt, just out a ring, somewhat dispersed ring outside of Mars orbit, is the asteroid belt, and there are asteroid families. Now, in my estimation, I'm not calling them belters because, well, belters has already been taken, and it's very the Expanse has used the idea of belters and Martians and Earthers, and so the term belters, while they can't steal that name and keep it, let's leave belters to the Expanse instead. In Obsidian Star, they're called Asturians, and Asters live in the asteroid belt. and they live in what are basically known as families. So the asteroid belt, instead of the science fiction asteroid belt where it's all clustered together and you have to weave in and out because the rocks might smash against each other. It's not really like that. Instead, there are clusters of asteroids that are probably mined for their various materials and things, and the people who live in the asteroid belt name themselves after the asteroid families in which they live. So it becomes their last names. And so some, like the prominent names, are known as Vesta, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation is Eunomia, 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 Coronis, Eos, and Themis are names of the family types that are out there. And so those groupings are like a neighborhood of asteroids in which they live. And let's see if we can find an image here. Maybe asteroids, families of asteroids. And let's see if we can get ourselves an image here. No, nothing like that. So yet again, for trillions of souls that exist in the Obsidian Star space and area, there are asteroid families, and so just living in and amongst those regions allows us to have even more places for people to live. So and then you attach on top of that, especially in the asteroid belt and a lot of the moons and other rocky bodies that are out there in space. For example, out there in the Kuiper belt, where Pluto, Charon, and many other non-planetary bodies are at. Very rich, very resource heavy people can go out there and just hire pirates or ice haulers or whatever, and have them push a rocky body and then just use that material and build themselves habitats. So we haven't even talked about the habitats. Shai says, do you detail all the moons that are populated and what kind of atmospheres and or terraforming they have? So the simple answer to that is no. But to answer the question, I'm not going to leave it up in the air. So what I've designed is okay. Let's see if I well, it's getting late. All right. I'll show it to you another day. So what I designed is about a third of the moons I'm going to describe, and that within those descriptions there will be lists so that you can pick and choose the type of habitat and population and where they are and what they're doing. So let me give you an example. I'm going to pick Mercury. I'll pick Mercury. I know it's a planet, it's not a moon, but it's the first thing that comes to my mind, and it's the one that I right now I have the most detail on, pulling out of my ass. So Mercury is a political hotbed, and the reason Mercury, strangely enough, is a political hotbed is because everybody wants to have access to the laser assist devices that are used to push light sails in starships. Those laser assist systems can be focused at other places in the solar system, and so nobody wants it pointed at themselves, but they want to be able to point it at other people. So that's the basis of the political hotbed. It's flooded. It's basically here in the States, it's our Washington, D.C. It's where lobbyists and mercenaries and anybody who's anyone that has wants to manipulate politics is going to Mercury. Along with that, there's this strange political thing where politicians walk along the surface of Mercury with the sun rising behind them. So they're walking along the terminus to show their smiling faces to their constituents that, yes, I'm working for you on Mars, vote for me and keep me here so that I can work for you, and things like that. So yes. Yes, TA. It is a hive of scum and villainy. Now, are there major cities on Mercury? Hell's yes. Are there, you know, private security and mercenaries working against each other? Is there assassination and bribery and things like that? Yes. Are there am I going to detail specific cities and specific locations and specific population? No. So what I'm going to have is themes, and then you can have there's going to be random tables where you can set up your own. And the reason why I want to you guys swamp of the solar system. Yes. Yeah. You, also, there's this idea of like literally taking Mercury and dumping it into the sun to get rid of all the people. Yeah, there is that. Yeah, so you can get them all in one fell swoop. Yes, yes. And now, mind you, in my head canon, I built this because of proximity, right? Mercury is the closest to the sun, building solar shades and solar panels. I'm like, oh, scientifically, that sounds cool. And then I was like, oh, the sun is used as a gravity slingshot. I wonder if they would, you know, whether Mercury would be the place where we would have people who are, um, uh, what would you say, monitoring who it is that's using the sun as a slingshot, and then controlling the passageway to go around the sun. Because if you could stop that, then you can control trade, which makes people powerful, which means people will want to use that power. And so I just kept going one after another. And I was like, well, wait a minute. There's also the sun is also free energy to make lasers, because lasers are made through light. And then those light systems could push solar sails. And I'm like, that sounds cool. This also sounds like a weapon. And weapons are usually in the hands of very powerful people. And who, because the other idea would be, well, why not just get rid of those things in the first place? And then you would say, well, why wouldn't we just get rid of nukes? And the reason we don't get rid of nukes is because they're, who's going to put their gun down first is the idea. And that's Mercury. So the moons around these places, for example, Jupiter, the Jovian system is a system unto its own. Jupiter is so big that it is the it's the largest planet, the second highest gravity region. So they use it as a slingshot. It's got 95 moons, and it is a haven of crime. It is basically the government of the Jovian system is nothing but criminal organizations in all these different moons. And so each moon, like there might be like one that's mainly a casino, and others for like body trafficking and zipper napping and things like that, and all kinds of illegal, dangerous scientific experiments and all that kind of business. So Jupiter would be the Jovian system is the classic scum and villainy, or the outer realm, I guess you could call it. Very powerful, lots of radiation, lots of electromagnetic energy. So it's difficult to spy on people and things like that. So lots of stuff. So there's going to be thematic regions in each area. And then we all get to pick and choose how we want it. Do we want it with a giant population of, I don't know, 30 billion people living on Ganymede? Or do you want Ganymede to be a scientific outpost? That's going to be up to everyone else, but there's going to be a thematic element. Saturn is a thematic element of because it literally has its own ice and water. It is very rich. It's like a gold mine region where you can just go there and mine it for like the ice, because the ice is used for the hydrogen and oxygen to burn for the ice fire engines, and things like that. So there's going to be themes, random tables. You can pick and choose how you want every person will be slightly different than somebody else's, if that makes sense. Horrible description, I think. Horrible. Yeah. But essentially that's how I'm going. As long as there's not a family of clothing makers and seamstresses that get that get named hemorrhoids living in asteroids and doing hemming or clothing. As ridiculous as that sounds, that actually sounds kind of cool. That's horrible. I love it. I love it so much. Oh man. So we can take the evil mining robots and send them all to Mercury. That actually sounds like a good idea. Yeah. Although the player characters might be sent there on a mission um, to protect some important dignitary or envoy, or to assassinate some kind of it, definitely a hotbed of that. And when I say it's a hotbed, in more than one way, are there like mobile crab or spider-like cities that are moving across Mercury? In the terminus between the sun and the frigid cold away from the sun and the blazing hot heat of the sun. Of course, are there underground cities in and around Mercury and such that they lock themselves down during the daylight because it burns up and stuff like that? Hell's yeah. And then all kinds of stuff happening underneath. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a cesspool. I listened to The Voyage of the Tachyon Express last night. Very sad story. I never heard of that. Hemorrhoids would be a marketing company. Yeah. Oh, you guys are so silly. I love it. Would the rings of Saturn not be gone by the time your gaming system is set in? They are disappearing apparently already. I have heard that we think of our solar system as being very static, but it's not. That over time, like the Saturn's rings are going away. That really a lot of the um rocky bodies and moons and planetary systems happen because of collisions, and they just happen to fall into these orbits that are like decaying and stuff. So yeah, I could see Saturn having its rings being depleted. Maybe that's a point of contention. Matter of fact, it's already in the system. That could be a point of contention of over mining Saturn's rings, and that Saturn isn't Saturn anymore. And there may be people who are like, we should have left the rings alone. And there's other people that are like, screw this, I'm taking what I can. Um, before we get to the end, Space Ghost, is he real in Obsidian Star? Well, if he's able to press the buttons like this over his head, what was it? Space Ghost, Jan and Jace. Mm. Oh man, we got to put some. We got to put this up here. We have to put some Space Ghost up here. Yeah. Hilarious. If you want sad space ballads, listen to nearly any Julia Eklar song. Ooh, I like I like what do you call that? Um, Soundtracks. I like making soundtracks to things, to like for RPGs and stuff, like getting like thematic songs and such. I love it. I love stuff like that. What was the I don't see it right here. There was a television show that used Space Ghost. What was the name of that show? I can't remember it. Space Ghost, Dino Boy. Man, I remember all those TV shows. Here's her name. Jan. Note, only on close-ups do Jan and Jace have pupils in eyes. All other times, blank. Wow, that's a little artistic note there. Yeah, there's the classic armband Space Ghost. Yeah, very fun. Very fun. Mm-mm-mm. It's bringing back memories of all these 80s cartoons. A lot of 80s cartoons. Okay. Anyway, it was on Comedy Central. Yeah. I don't remember the name of it. And it was hilarious because it was very tongue in cheek and like a bit a bit adult, I guess. Because if there are obsidian space souls, there must be space ghosts. But bump. I didn't even get that. I didn't even get that till now. Craniac would be my second. Yeah. We could replace Saturn's rings with satellites. Also, I was totally going to make Space Ghost as my first character. I think it would be possible to do it. Pretty easy, though. That's great. I always thought that the rings of Saturn are ground up material that is in the individual rings because of the material it is composed of, like a sort of refining system. Maybe. Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Thank you guys. N King, um, N King, Shice, yeah, Dead Man. Space Ghost Coast to Coast was the interview show, and it was very like sarcastic, tongue in cheek. And if I'm not mistaken, some of the people interviewed were kind of unaware of the the tone of the show, and that was kind of the point, that they would start interviewing people and they wouldn't know. It was something like that. Yeah. It was pretty funny. Now you're gonna make me think about it. Mm-mm-mm. Space Ghost. I'm trying to see if there's any other. There we go. There's Hulk Hogan interviewing Hulk Hogan. Oh, there's the starship right here to the right of me. I mean, to the left of me, right of the screen. There's a Jan and Jay Space Ghost, Gleep, I believe, and then the starship they flew in, even though they could fly out in space because they had like these invisible skin type force fields or something like that. Space Ghost pressing the button to shoot a freeze ray. I'm going to shoot a heat ray. I love it. Must have been a parody of that coast to coast paranormal crank show where we should all have been hit by magnetic pulse or kill shot from someone or some shit. Is that it? I don't know. All right, guys. Thank you very much for letting me just talk about this. I wanted to okay. Sausage making. I wanted to allow our solar system to be fully populated. And when I make fully populated, I don't mean every single moon, every single corner has millions of people. I don't mean that. What I mean is that if any of you have an idea for a location, a story, a dramatic element, and you want a large population to allow that to exist, and it's not all these scientific outposts with only a dozen people in them, anywhere in the solar system, you absolutely positively can do that. If you want 5 million people living on Pluto, yes, there are, because there will be. Or rather, let's just say the possibility of that many people living in those places is a possibility. And so therefore, possibilities become true when we put them in front of our players and when we world build. The other thing is, again, I think we miss the beauty of our own solar system. And there are some amazing places in our own solar system that I feel like are great backdrops for amazing storytelling. Whether, like I said, whether it's an icy moon that's got a deep water ocean in it, whether it's Titan that has its own atmosphere, whether you want a moon overrun with rogue AI or paperclip optimization machines, or criminal elements or organizations or other governments and things like that. The point is, yes, the answer to your question of can you, then the answer is yes, do it. Go ahead and do it. Also, listen, we love dropping dangerous things onto large populations and making that a threat. And you kind of run out of cities after you start bombarding Earth and maybe Mars or something like that. So we kind of need places to destroy. Kind of terrible thought to think about, but yeah. So some of these major city center populations also are great places for us to have our threat quotient ramped up to a certain level. And listen, if you're going to put in the hands of your players explosives and nukes and missiles and things like that, they're going to want to use them. So we also need places for those things to be used, as well as the fact that if our players are going to be bebopping around the solar system and we want a place for them to go that might be a safe haven, to have our NPCs arrive, to have our rivals and adversaries work against our player characters and their actions, we may need some major cities for them to operate to allow that to happen. And so spread across the solar system, having these giant-sized metropolises of millions and billions of people, probably more generally in the million range, that having a number of them spread around is pretty great. Also, again, places for players to go. When I say rest, I mean like go to casinos, have special scientific objects made for them, like improvements on their weapons and things. Finding new jackets for them to zip themselves into for their players. They're like, oh, I got a jacket with 4 arms, or that's shaped like a dolphin, or whatever. Where are they going to get all these things from? We kind of would love to have ourselves a major population center for that to happen. So, and also if our players get out of hand and they really love to murder hobo their way across the solar system, having other authorities that have greater power, basically upping the threat quotient against the players, also means that having a higher population, more industry for technology, greater chances for rumors and gossip and things like that, and greater populations of factions that are working against each other for the players to, monkey wrench around in and things. So, yep, absolutely. Let's see. I could see a ship sitting aligned with a Saturn ring that has some material they want, just hovering up the ring as it goes. Yeah, with the ring disappearing into a giant opening at the front of the ship. Yeah, just scooping it in. Hell's yeah. Yeah. I can see an antagonist in a giant conglomerate corporation that is busy trying to deconstruct everything in the solar system and turning it into an O'Neill cylinder habitat that it rents for space. Yeah. Let's not forget there are people living in the Lagrange points, and I still haven't even talked about cyclers. Giant moon-sized, hollowed-out asteroids sent on elliptical orbits through the solar system. I guess the closest thing would be like cruise ships or a railroad or cargo ships. The elliptical orbit meaning that it's using the sun to sling itself out to the outer limit and then coming back again, and then people catching a ride on it to get to where they need to go. In style, maybe. Sort of an analog to the BlackRock thing, buying houses, yeah, and turning them all into perpetual rental properties. That actually makes a lot of sense though, for somebody to build a ton of habitats and then rent them out and then have control over the people that live in them. I mean, you literally, if you do that, you have the right to control their air, the water that they eat, the communications that they have. That's pretty dangerous. So, what is Space Hump Day called on other planets? Surely you have made different calendars and weekdays for every moon and planet, right? You know what? I thought about that, and then I tried to look it up, and then I was like, yeah, shit. That's complicated. Oh man, different time periods, different. I have a solution to that, but yeah, that's very complicated. Characters could be working on behalf of a preservation society wanting to just use the solar system as it is, so it remains as is for prosperity's sake and such, like a national forest. Yeah, but the whole solar system. TA, we are on such the same page, such the same page. Yeah, about Mars has that. Mars has the reds, the greens, and the golds. The golds want to exploit Mars. The greens want to terraform Mars. The reds want to keep Mars as Mars the way it is. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And honestly, even now we have people who are like, listen, if we find bacteria, living material on another planet, should we go there to populate that planet? Because our presence could kill the life that's there. And to even now we have theorists, maybe more like ethical and moralists, talking about what we should do if that even happens. Yeah, murder hoboing brings more soylent green. Yeah. Murder hoboing, is not worth it. It actually brings more baggage. Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, before we get out of here, the baggage system for and this is for you, Drew, the baggage system for this game, and we're going to get in, maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. Conundrums, capital C, conundrums, is basically a numerical value that is a problem that the players have to solve. and a conundrum can be any number of things. And the dice system makes both going pew pew shooting things equal to having a family drama relationship with your parents and nephews and siblings. They are identical. So not only are they identical in terms of dealing with them through dice mechanics, they are also identical in the outcome of them. So failures to deal with your family and failures to shoot the pew pew, the pew pew shoot the robots, has the exact same baggage quotient, I guess, for your character. So in a game, one character could be like the badass mercenary that's like, damn it, we're being hunted by robots and I'm trying to blow them away, motherfucker, boom, 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 boom. And another character's like, you know what, I shouldn't have left my family the way I did, and I feel guilty about it, and blah, blah, blah. Both have equal outcomes and equal impact on the story. So you could literally have a run and gun game using the numbers of run and gun with robots and zero gravity and poison atmospheres and radiation exposure and nitrogen spilling out everywhere and having to go through tunnels and shoot mercenaries. And then the next game could be the players are on, I don't know, in a casino on Mars, and they end up running across, you know, old allies of themselves from their past and trying to reconcile their relationships and all that kind of stuff with not a gun pulled. It's all talky talk, and the exact numbers run exactly parallel to each other. So yeah, that's why I wanted to come up with this gear baggage system where, you know, different characters carry baggage different ways, and some may not feel guilty about leaving their family behind, whereas others are like, man, I got to go back, and I can't believe I'm on this mission and running around the solar system, and you know, I'm dodging my responsibilities. And so yeah, that's all that has to do with. So guys, thank you very much for letting me just, you know, rant and rave on this Obsidian Star you know, promotion of the channel. So I thank you guys very much for letting me do that, letting me do this and introduce you guys to this. Also, um, um, I think a better way of doing, instead of trying to create this and create thousands of pages and do it all at once, what I think I may do is um, create chunks and release just each chunk at a time. So it might be like, for example, you guys saw me working on the different options, what I call the jackets, the different physical bodies your character could be in, and then release maybe a little bit of that, and literally just like release it like a you know, a PDF picture file, whatever you want to call it, and just do it like a little bit at a time, and then stitch it together into one big thing. Yeah, 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 Shice. Yeah, I'm thinking of taking your idea, and what I do is like what's a good example here? Let me see if I could find, like, for example, I found a bunch of um maps, for example, and free to use maps. Yes, free to use. And I found a bunch of these maps, and I was like, oh no, it's not here. Oh, it's in the Obsidian Star file. Duh. Okay. And so let me see if I can share this. Do this. Window. Here we go. Share this out. Let's see if you guys can see this. So shared this. So for example, this is an example. I got these from Dyson Logos. Yeah, played Descent for evil mining robots. Yeah, hells yeah. So got these maps from Dyson Logos, and now Dyson makes plenty of RPG fantasy maps, but I think many of these apply to science fiction. So if I can just, here's another one, and what I may do is put out, like, as the game is being produced, put out a number of these maps as well with very fillable descriptions of things, so that they are general enough for people to use them and use them in a game, and then and whether these are let me see if I can move this because I can't even see it. Look at this. It looks like some kind of like tower or monolith or something. This could be carved out of ice or stone or something of that nature. And there's like a lab inside of it or something like that. Here's another map. Maybe this is someone's. It looks like a castle, of course. This could be on the moon or someplace like that, or Earth or whatever, Mars even. Look at this complex. Definitely a layer of a mega dungeon, right? And this could be like a hive world, underworld kind of thing. There's even like, it looks like a river, some kind of waterway underneath. You can see there's tunnels and how steps and tunnels lead under other passages, and it's carved out of stone. So yeah, despite the fact that these things are fantasy, I think many of these maps can be used for science fiction. So I may do some combining, like, hey guys, this week we're releasing this, or this week here's just something here, or just ask you guys and say like, hey, let's pick a map and then detail it out a little bit and see where we go with that kind of stuff. Dyson also gave permission to modify the maps. So something like this over in the corner, Dyson is allowing us to like delete them, and absolutely positively credit goes where it deserves. So I will never take credit for these. These are some look at this map. Look at this. This is sweet. And I mean, this looks very scientific to me, very geometric, smooth walls, almost like it's bored out. It almost looks like the major passageways would be like a city where vehicles would move. Here at the bottom left of this map, to me, it looks like maybe a hangar system or whatever, starships. This could also not be underground. This could be above ground. So this could be carved out of stone, and all of this is exposed to the air. And you just have these little cavities for like shops and things like that. So I'll show you a couple more of these maps. Here's an old tower. Here's another place that just looks very geometric and things. Here's another tower. Oh, picture of Mars. So, but anyway, wanted to show that off to you guys. So guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Really appreciate it. Tomorrow, maybe we might go over some of that stuff, and then I will show you some written materials as well. So guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being here. Your time is very valuable. Thank you very much for spending it here. I hope we can make some change in your scientific, sci-fi, futuristic, space, tabletop role-playing games, and of course, everything else in your life. Guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace, tranquility.